Yeah, so we want to add more endgame, and then we want to add some more endgame, and then
some more?
We're going to add more endgame.
Yeah, we're going to add some more after that.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Ladies, gentlemen, and haradrim of all ages, tonight we had the Campfire chat follow-up to all of the announcements at BlizzCon open ceremony last night, and for anyone who wasn't sticking around to watch the whole stream to see the whole Campfire chat live, I figured I'd round it all up to make sure that you haven't missed any of the little extra tidbits of news that we got on the expansion, on Season 3, and the much closer events of a patch that is hitting during this upcoming week, as well as one that happens on December 5th, with quite a bit being added to the game with both of these. So tonight we got a sit-down with some developers talking about what they are able to actually share with us about these different things. First up, let's talk about the expansion. The developers didn't give us any substantial information on the expansion whatsoever, to put it simply. They told us stuff that we already know. Vessel of Hatred's story is a direct continuation of the base game campaign, taking us to the jungles of Nahantu to the south, and eventually to the sprawling city of Karast at its center. It's been 72 years in-game since the events took place in Diablo 2's Act 3, where you also spent quite a bit of time in the same region as city, and so they wanted to do a sort of homage while working it in a sensible way, as it just fits the story from where it was. And as well, they expect you to see some returning faces in here. Ooh! Then we just got to see some concept art to give you some idea of the actual feel of the environment, which is worth noting is quite different from the regions in the game up to this point. It's a nice big sprawling jungle, giant trees, routes that you can walk across as like bridges over chasms. It's very cool. The final thing that they mentioned as far as the expansion had to do with the new class. The new class, they made a big deal about how they were about to talk about it. They were hyping up about they're about to drop new class information, and the only info that we got was that it will be a new class, as in not a returning one. So, you know, for everyone mentioning that the jungle is a thing and talking about the witch doctor or looking for the return of the paladin or crusader, it won't be this next class at least, because it is completely confirmed as much as possible to be brand new to the series, though that is something that we already knew at this point. After that, we had talk of some much sooner events. This upcoming Tuesday on November 7th, we have a new patch that's hitting the game, 1.2.2, and while most of it is just bug fixes, this patch will be coming with all 5 of the brand new unique Malignant rings that were mentioned yesterday, and as opposed to the expansion, we did get quite some information about these in particular, and here are all 5 of them. For the rogue, we get the Trickery Heart. Casting a subterfuge skill leaves a decoy trap behind that taunts and lures enemies for 3 seconds before exploding for a decent pop of shadow damage. This can only occur once every 12 seconds. This is absolutely not the best rogue effect from the Malignant Heart, so you could definitely do some funky things with this in a death trap or trap focus build in general though, but it is unlikely to just become a fixture of rogue, which it would have if they used some crazy imbuement Wrathful Heart. Its actual affixes then are crit chance, crit damage, damage to crowd controlled enemies, and maximum life, which is basically just a 4 out of 4 perfect affix ring for rogue in most builds though, so it is still very good even on that front. Then for sorcerer, you get the Talrasha Heart power. For each type of elemental damage that you deal, you gain up to 15% multiplicative bonus damage for 4 seconds. Dealing any elemental damage refreshes all of your bonuses. As well, the affixes are non-physical damage, which makes sense, crit chance, resource generation, and cooldown reduction, which is actually quite fancy for a ring, specifically the cooldown reduction part of it. This will definitely see a bit of use with sorcerer. As for how much, it will depend what it needs to replace in the various builds really, but the potential gain is quite high. But of course, that means it is going to have to replace a slot. After that, we saw Barbarian with a transfer of the focused Rage Heart, this one getting quite a major change to it that actually makes it significantly better as a unique in my mind. After spending 100 Fury, your next cast of Hammer of the Ancients, Upheaval or Deathblow is a guaranteed crit and deals up to 30% increased extra crit damage, and that's also a multiplier. The reason I think this is better is because before it just said non-basic skill, now it specifies these 3, which means that it will always work on these 3, and these are the ones that you want in the builds that you would use this with. This will absolutely see use in these Barb builds because it's just pretty solid. Then we have for Druid the Inexorable Force Heart, which I personally loved, which is when casting an ultimate skill, and again 5 seconds after, you pull in distant enemies and deal damage to them, with that damage increased by 1% for every point of willpower that you have. So this actually has quite a lot of scaling potential with endgame gear. The only part about this that makes me sad is compared to the Malignant Heart, it only does the pull twice, 5 seconds apart from each other, but that is still really solid, especially for builds with cooldown resetting shenanigans, so I really quite look forward to messing with this. It also has percent willpower increase, damage to close enemies, lucky hit chance, and ultimate skill cooldown reduction as affixes, which is pretty awesome for the builds that would already fit in. Then finally we have the Sacrilegious Heart for Necromancers, turned into a ring, automatically activate a corpse skill on corpses around you, raise skeleton every 1 second, corpse explosion every 1 second, corpse tendrils every 8 seconds on a maximum roll, and that just sort of sucks, honestly. I mean, the beauty of this before was that the pulling was constant, but I guess they did need to rebalance it if they wanted it to be a permanent item. I mean, think of it this way, Druid's new unique lets them do a pull like twice every every 30 seconds at absolute best, and it is guaranteed to be 5 seconds after the first time in that loop. So once every 8 seconds isn't bad by any means, but it's just worse than the original power. That said, still it's quite good if you can somehow fit it into your build, and the affixes are lucky hit chance, maximum life, maximum essence, and the big one, a plus ranks to all corpse skills on a ring, which is just really nice in that slot. After that, we move on to the update hitting December 5th, so just over a month away from now, where we'll have updates to the Occultist, including the new enchanting preview window so you can see the affixes that can be rolled when enchanting and their actual roll ranges in-game, which is nice so we don't have to use, external tools for that. During this part, they mentioned that they are looking into changes to the affixes in the future to alleviate the feeling of garbage affixes existing or just ones that are overly conditional, but they're not quite ready to talk about the changes yet. The other main fixture of the December 5th patch then is the Abattoir of Zir, a new endgame mechanic, a slaughterhouse of fun. And while we still don't know exactly what this event entails actually on the inside, we got a good bit more info. We know it is considered a dungeon, it is designed to be taken on by properly decked out characters, level 100, they even mentioned uber unique, so they really made this for people who have put proper builds together to take it on as a challenge. People have been in the endgame for quite a while and built themselves up properly. Then they are looking for player feedback as well from this event specifically to fuel their ideas for future endgame additions to the game, so definitely talk about how you feel about this event once you've gotten into it, or they might even make a return itself as a more permanent fixture later on if people like it enough. Past that, we got a sort of flowchart on what they expect from this activity. It will have sigils and tiers, sort of like Nightmare Dungeons. When you finish the Season Journey's final chapter, you will get a recipe to create the Tier 1 Bloodforged Sigil. You can use this to access the Abattoir of Zir. It lists this as a dungeon, and if you complete Tier 1, you get a big upgrade totem for lots of Paragon Glyph XP, the recipe to craft a Tier 2 Bloodforged Sigil, and if you don't have the new Paragon Glyph, you get it guaranteed. From there, you can do Tier 2 to unlock Tier 3, Tier 3 to unlock Tier 4, etc., with the main changes in between these tiers being a significant bump in difficulty between each tier according to the developers, but also it should be quite high scaling Glyph XP for your Paragon Glyphs at the end of it too when you're successful. As far as the actual new Paragon Glyph then, here we got a nice proper screenshot of it. 4 radius to start with, which is exactly the same as a fully upgraded normal Glyph. Radius increases even further at level 50, 2% increased damage multiplicatively for every 5 of your core stat in the radius, as well as a 50% bonus to rare nodes that increases with Glyph levels as well. So this is a hell of a lot of value to pretty much every class and build. We're almost all going to want this, especially if it actually scales nicely as you level it up. After that, we got quite a bit more information on the Midwinter Blight. Just looks like a nice chill little bonus event, a seasonal area in Kiovashad, some dancing blight fiends out in the Fractured Peaks over in little areas, kill them enough to summon the Red Cloaked Horror, who is a boss for the event. If you kill this guy, you get some materials to stuff into the totem in Kiovashad and unlock some more goodies from the event itself, with these specific event goodies being a set of cosmetic weapons and also back trophies for the different classes. Then finally, we just had some brief talk about Season 3, which now has the codename Season of the Orange Text, as they just kept calling it that. The only new stuff that we were told about is the filtering on the leaderboards. We know about the leaderboards, which is new for the new Gauntlet activity, a set dungeon that you gain access to once you reach World Tier 4. This is going to be a fixed seed, non-linear dungeon, meaning that there are multiple ways to work your way through it, multiple paths, but every time that you do, it will be exactly the same, which lets you go at it multiple times in a row to really work out your perfect plan before it changes on a week-to-week basis. Based on your performance in the dungeon, you will get a score, and that is what goes on the leaderboard. That thing where it says Hall of the Ancients on the roadmap there, that is where you actually look at your leaderboard. What we learned is that the leaderboard here has a bunch of filters, solo filters, groups of varying sizes, hardcore, softcore, PC, consoles, you name it, really, you can filter it. But we didn't really get anything new about Season 3 other than that. But that said, we got one tiny little bit of confirmed thing extra being worked on from the question and answer section, and they specifically said this would come, quote unquote, soon after Season 3. So not really that soon, but it's the concept that when you extract an aspect from a legendary item at the Occultist, it will be going into your Codex of Power rather than in your inventory, and that in itself is such an absolutely insanely big deal for stash management. I mean, half of my stash is just legendary powers I'm worried I might want for a build at some point. Honestly, more than half, probably about 3/4, maybe even 4/5, and I just don't want to have to rely on the RNG to farm them again if I were to get rid of them, which is why my stash is full. And that just about does it then, actually, for the Campfire chat. The new information was definitely quite limited for how long they actually talked, but we did get a bit to chew on, most notably being the full reveal of those unique rings. Some classes will definitely get good use out of them, some of them less so, but all of them are interesting to have at the very least. As well, they also mentioned that if you want these rings, what you need to do once they release is farm Varshan. They are on his unique target farming list, just like the other ways that you can target farm other uniques in the game, so Varshan is the boss that you want to kill. Farm up your Varshan materials if you want those rings. With that then, I hope you've enjoyed this roundup of the live on-stage Campfire chat, and let me know your own thoughts down below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
I was not pausing for applause. I'm just awkward.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.